Welcome everyone to the next edition of CFO Insight TV. I'm happy that you join us again for this show, and I'm also very happy to welcome Achim Klueber, Managing Director of Corporate and Institutional Banking at EuropeArabBank. Welcome, Mr. Klueber.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for coming. And the name of your bank already indicates what we're going to talk about today, which is the Arab world, the Middle East and North Africa region. Could you just give us, for means of introduction, a short insight into what EuropeArabBank is and EuropeArabBank in particular?
Sure, glad to do that. Yes, EuropeArabBank is actually a company that was founded in 1930 in Jerusalem. It's one of the oldest of the Arab banks and one of the larger ones in respect to the presence in the MENA region. EuropeArabBank is the subsidiary, the 100% subsidiary, headquartered in London, representing the European offices of the Arab Bank Group. And we have offices in Frankfurt, in Paris, in Milan, in Vienna, and also in Madrid.
So you want to be a bridge to a region that is at the moment under very heavy scrutiny from the global public opinion because of a lot of political unrest. So does that bridge function get you anywhere? Are a lot of companies interested in going there?
Well, I mean, the region has about 450 million people in terms of population. You can probably cluster the region into three areas. You can cluster the GCC area into the GCC area, that's the Gulf Cooperation Council, with countries like Qatar, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates. You have the Levant region with Lebanon, with Palestine, with Jordan, with Syria, and you have North Africa with such important markets as Morocco, Egypt, Algeria.
But a lot of those important markets are have not had a good past 1.5 years, you could say, for political reasons mainly, which also has negative implications for the economic growth prospects, obviously. Do you see one of those clusters as particularly well placed for future growth?
Well, you're right. As a whole, of course, we had the banking crisis, the world economic crisis, and in addition, the situation with the MENA region, i.e. Arab Spring. Having said that, the developments, if you look at the GCC countries, continues to be quite positive. Qatar had a first quarter 2012 growth rate of 6.9%. But you're, of course, right. The political uncertainty does mean slower growth rates, does mean more careful investments on the part of a number of institutions and corporates.
The World Bank actually estimated that last year the region as a whole, the MENA region, grew by about, I think, 1.6 or 1.8% only, and it's even lower expectations for this year of just 0.8%, which is not exactly much better than most of Europe is doing. So what do you think would be, in terms of a sector basis, the highest potential for the region?
Mm-hmm. Well, we see, of course, a lot in the GCC countries on the petrochemical side, as you could well imagine, but we also see quite a number of infrastructure projects going on there. At the moment, railway systems is quite on top of the agenda. And we see an interest, of course, then in the Western construction companies, engineering companies, project management offices, and companies to be involved in that. But also many of the particularly North African countries are young societies. In Egypt, you have a population of around about 79 million. I think more than 50% of the population is less than 14 years old. So you will see quite an opportunity growth there and a pent-up demand growth there, I think, over time. So I'm very optimistic in respect to the region.
Still, the region, I think it constitutes about 7% of world population, but only about 5% of world GDP. So it's definitely punching below its weight. What do you think has kept its economic potential so low, and why should it recover?
So I think one aspect has been the political situation, which hopefully over time will also find the right balance. I think also, if you will, the legal systems might have led to less investments. There's a lot of work being done around that. Potentially also the fact that the financial numbers are not always as clear and as open as we know it from, let's say, the US market or from the European markets. So there's a process in place to improve on those as well. So I think those factors do play a role.
You mentioned the financial figures already. What about financial markets in more general? Are they deep enough and developed enough to support economic growth on its own? And in addition, what role does Islamic financing products play in the region and for your bank as well?
Right. I think the banking crisis and the economic crisis 2009, 2010 has actually led to the fact that the markets are less deep today than they were beforehand. I think investors are being more careful. I think issuers are not willing to pay the type of prices that investors would demand for certain maturities. So what we've seen is a shift back, in my opinion, to the intermediation function of banks. So banking has become more important in the region again. Islamic finance or Sharia-based financing is important. There's actually quite a lot of liquidity in that market. But in terms of dealing with the Western countries as we do, as EuropeArabBank, you don't find a lot of need to actually do it on an Islamic finance basis. You do see it from time to time when individuals, when companies from the region go into Europe, on the real estate, for example, real estate financing side, for example, we do see the use of that product from time to time.
But to put that clearly, as a Western company that wants to invest in the region, I don't need to basically show that I do Sharia-conforming financing just to be an acceptable business partner in the region.
Not at all.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Klueber. Very interesting insights into the region. And we have 3 more unexpected short questions for you.
Okay.
So we'll see about those. First of all, do you think Islamic finance would be, because it's based on more or less real transactions,
correct? Yes.
Could it be a role model for modernizing Western finance as we know it?
I think that's the direction where Western finance is going, yes.
I already mentioned MENA is actually punching below its weight. Do you think in 10 years it will manage to at least be as economically productive as it should be in terms of a global population?
I think so, yes. I think the elements needed for that are being put in place, and that'll be the case.
Okay. And let's just try to describe the region in 20 years from now. Would you think it's democratic and dynamic, autocratic and chaotic, or somewhere in between?
I think that's a decision that the MENA population needs to take.
Okay. Cautious answer. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for joining us for CFO Insight TV. I'm looking forward to seeing you again next week here on our CFO channel, and I hope you enjoyed our show this week. And thank you and goodbye.